Over or under? What's going on, BLV and football fans, gridiron gamblers? It's Mitch here, back with another week of my over-under bets in the NFL. Last week was a tough week for picking games in the NFL, but last week we actually survived. We didn't go below 500. We went exactly 500, 6, and we had one push, which actually was the Chargers and the Chiefs game, which landed exactly at 48. So 6-1, not doing too bad overall this season, and looking to continue the record, moving up, learning as we go for the first season of picking every over-under for every game on the NFL schedule for 2023. Join me on my journey, guys. Gronk spike the like button. Let me know in the comment section below your best bet for the totals this week. And if you have one favorite play that really stands out, be sure to let me know in the comments and why you believe that's a great bet to make this week. Let's begin with Thursday Night Football, which is happening not too long from now, or you're probably watching this after Thursday Night Football. But Thursday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Buffalo Bills. This is a total of 43.5. And with the Bills being a team that is in a bounce back spot here, I kind of believe if they're going to have a bounce back, which I slightly lean towards they probably will, if they are going to have a bounce back, it's going to come from the offense. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. These guys are going to have a big game. And Tampa Bay has had a really good defense this year. I feel like they've been a top 10, if not top 7 unit in the NFL. I do think they'll get their stops. But we've seen Buffalo. When they win games, they tend to blow out games. And when they win games at home, it typically gets out of hand. And it gets wild. It gets crazy. So my analysis on this game would be, if you believe the Bills will win, if you still believe in the Bills, then I would go over here. So I think the Bills will win. I think this game will go over because I think the Bills will score a lot of points. Here's the thing, though. I think the Bucs could also score a decent amount of points with how the Bills have looked on defense since losing Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Daquan Jones. 3 of their biggest pieces on defense they've been without. They've actually elevated Josh Norman, of all people, onto their active day roster. So this is a defense that got shredded by Mac Jones and the Pats. I expect Baker to have some success in this game, even though they are also struggling on offense, just like New England was. So I think that the Bucs will at least get to about 17, and I feel like the Bills could get to 30, which is going to lead to an over in this game. The next game, the first on Sunday, 35.5 is the total for the Falcons and the Titans. And this is one of the lowest totals I can actually recall in an NFL game that wasn't going to be affected by super weather. 35.5 is insanely low. Now that speaks to the styles of these two teams. They both love to run the football. And we saw even Atlanta play a 16-13 game against Tampa Bay on the road last week in a victory. But Atlanta should have definitely scored more points in that game. It felt like they had some fumbles in key areas of the field. Tennessee is really going from Ryan Tannehill to the young rookie really that big of a difference? I don't know. Is it really that big at Ryan Tannehill's point in his career right now where you're going to make this total so low? So just the basis of the idea that this is just an extremely low number in a game that doesn't have snow or incredible winds, I have to go with the over. Maybe I'm trapped by two teams that just love to run the ball and are just going to milk the clock, and two defenses that have been pretty solid this year. But I just think that this probably has more ways of going over 35.5, especially if it stays under 36, which seems to be one of those key numbers in games where the bookmakers feel like it's going to be a really low scoring game. So I'm going to go with the over 35.5. Next up, we've got 46.5 in the Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. This one's really tough because on paper, I kind of feel like this is an over game. I actually feel like the Patriots offense kind of found something against Buffalo. And when you look at what Miami's been doing on defense, they're not a very good defense. New England's offensive line has greatly improved since the first matchup, so I do think they're going to put up in the 20s in this game. But at the same time, I think Miami's offense has regressed since their first meeting because their offensive line is now injured. They have 3 guys missing on the offensive line. Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert are both going to play probably, but they're banged up, as well as Jalen Waddle. And there's been more footage of game plans that have worked against Miami, specifically the Eagles. So I feel like New England will be able to pick up on that and maybe do a better job than they even did the first time around, where they only allowed 24 points. So it feels like this game's going to be right in that 24-21 range to me. And that's why this number is really, really good. Because I could see this being 27-20, 27-23, 24-21, somewhere within that range. I kind of lean towards man, I'm not going to bet this. You can just tell, because these games have often been unders with Tua and even McDaniel and Belichick. They've often gone under, but I slightly lean towards the over just because the game's in Miami, where the weather is typically very, very nice and pristine for points. Miami has been better on offense at home, and I feel like New England is going to start to cook here offensively this week and carry through what they did last week. So I'm actually going to lean towards the over. I kind of feel like this game ends up being a 27-20 where it just goes over the total. But I would definitely not bet this game. Next, we've got the 43.5 of the Colts and the Saints. I'm going to go with the over in this game, despite me liking the Saints' defense against Gardner Minshew. I do feel like the Colts have overall been a wildly over team. Just consistently, they've been an over team. They've been hard to calculate. I think a lot of that has to do with Shane Steichen's decisions to go for it on 4th down, maybe when he should or shouldn't. There's been a lot of turnovers in these games. Now, one thing that you're going to need in this game is Derek Carr to show up in the red zone. I think the Colts defense is okay, but I think the Saints can move the ball with their receivers against weaker cornerbacks. I think this game is another one like that New England-Miami, where it could go either way, but I feel like these two teams most likely end up in the 20s. So I'm going to go with the over 43.5. The next one is 36.5 in the Jets and the Giants. This is a pretty easy under for me. This is, again, that key range of 36.5 in these crazy under type spots. Two teams in New York, two teams with, I feel like, a split fan base in the house. I feel like both defenses will dominate this game. The Jets up front are going to have a massive advantage against the Giants' offensive line. And I think the Giants, from a schematical standpoint, will take advantage of Zach Wilson. And I don't really think the Jets are going to get much of a ground game going here. I think Martindale really ruins the Jets' offensive day. So I think this could go either way. This is probably a field goal, 4-point type of game. 17-13, in that range of things. So I'm going to go with the under in this matchup. Next up, 43.5, Washington and Philadelphia. Earlier in the year, this game went over, and I want to say it could go over again. I think a lot of the games for Washington have gone over because of their offense being pretty explosive, but also their offensive line being a pretty big weakness, and then their defense being really bad against the pass. So the first game went over. Does that mean the second game goes under? That's a tricky question. I'm going to lean towards the over, though, because I do think the Eagles find a way to get into the high 20s, maybe the 30s. Then I think Washington could maybe come from behind and potentially cover the spread from the backdoor position, or just keep up with the Eagles all game long like they did in the first game. So I don't know what it is with Washington's offense, but they seem to have a way to pass the ball against this Eagles team. So I'm going to go with the over in that game. Next up, 41 in the Steelers and the Jags. I'm going to go under in most Steelers games, and this is not an exception. I think what I like about this matchup in the under is Steelers in Pittsburgh. Jags have an underrated defense, and they're good against the run. So that's going to force Pickett to throw the ball a lot against a pretty good cornerback group of Jacksonville. And then on the other side, TJ Watt in this pass rush taking on the biggest weakness of Jacksonville, which is their offensive line. So I like the under in this game. That's actually Ultra's favorite pick of the week, if anybody cared. Shout out to Ultra. Next up, 42.5, Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. This is tricky. I don't love either of these defenses, but I have a lot of respect for the talent of the Packers defense and the scheme of the Vikings defense led by Brian Flores. I also have a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense, and I do think they're going to move the ball against the Packers. At the same time, I could see maybe a way that the Packers are able to hit a couple explosive plays, like even if Brian Flores sends one of those crazy blitzes and Christian Watson breaks off a 70-yard slant, I wouldn't be shocked, but Jordan Love has been frustrating to watch, and this Packers team has been playing at a very slow pace and has been lacking points. So I'm going to lean towards the under here. Not going to be a bet for me this week, but that's going to be my official pick as the under 42.5. Next, we have a 43.5 in the Texans and the Panthers. Panthers defense has been low-key really bad, so this makes me say over. I think that the Texans have had some wildly uncharacteristic over games. I also feel like this is probably one of the easier matchups that Bryce Young has had this year, so if he's going to score some points, it could be in this game. He's been better, and the Panther offense has been better. I think their offensive line also got healthier through the bye week, and the new offensive play calling could also spark some better offense from the Panthers. So I'm going to say CJ and Bryce actually have a pretty exciting game here and go over 43.5. Next, 44.5 between the Ravens and the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been an under team, it feels like, as of late. I'm going to say under because I just believe in the Ravens defense. There's not going to be a lot of science here. I just like the Ravens defense. And that's going to be simple as that. I think maybe the Ravens come out a little bit slower on offense than they did last week. It's pretty hard to expect 2 weeks in a row with that type of performance where I think they had 4 drives, 28 points. They're up 28-0. It was just unbelievable. I think that the Ravens kind of come down to earth a little bit where they're slow out of the gates due to playing a really emotional, highly publicized game last week. This week, they play an easy opponent. I think Lamar and company maybe not quite on their P's and Q's, and I think the Cardinals defense is a little bit underrated. And then on the other side, I just feel like the Ravens take care of business. So I'm going to go under. Next up, total is 46 in the Broncos and the Chiefs. This game was way under this total in the first matchup. No Bolton for the Chiefs is a big deal, I do think, and that could open up some things for the Broncos. This game's also in Denver, which I think actually helps the spread for the Broncos just in general to score points. I think in Arrowhead, it was difficult for Russell Wilson with communication and things of that nature. I think that opens some things up in the first half for the Broncos to maybe play with the Chiefs early on. So I'm going to go with the over here. I actually think this could be a low-key, high-scoring game. So I'm going to go over 46. Next, 38 is the total in Seahawks and Browns. I'm going under. I'm going under in most Browns games from now on. PJ Walker, the quarterback, going to try not to make mistakes. Browns are going to try to run the football. Seahawks have been good against the run. They have a solid secondary. I think they can clamp down on Amari Cooper and company and keep things really a defensive game. Because I feel like the Browns are going to get a good pass rush. I feel like the Browns defense is going to have the answers for Geno Smith and company, who have struggled as of late. I mean, look, that last game against Arizona was 20-10. So I think this game is going to be an under. I could see a 20-17 type of game going on here in Seattle. Next up, 45.5 is the Rams and the Cowboys. This feels like one of those classic Dak Prescott at-home spots where it's an over. Like, this is a crazy, 38 burger by the Cowboys due to some turnovers, some, big explosive plays in the run and the pass game from CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard. And then on the other side, I feel like Stafford's going to have to keep pace. McVay is going to have to push the tempo. You've got Cooper Kupp. You've got Puka Nacua. You've got enough pieces there to come from behind and potentially get a backdoor type of deal. So I could see this being a pretty explosive game in that nice environment in Jerry. The next game is the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. This one's tricky because Brock Purdy could potentially be out, but we also saw him practice today, so maybe he will be playing. I would just overall not bet the total here, but if I were to bet it, I would actually go with the under. I feel like the Bengals offensively have been a pretty slog. They've just been slow, They've been methodical. They've been lacking explosiveness outside of the Cardinals game. And they are very simple to break down if you're a 49ers defense that's in a bounce back spot at home. And I personally believe the Niners defense will come to play here. I also think that Big Lou will have a nice game plan for Purdy or Darnold, and for Shanahan's offense, especially if Trent Williams and Debo are out, which I expect them to be. So I kind of feel like this leans towards the under. I could see something like a 23-20, 23-17 type of game. But yeah, I kind of feel like both defenses show up here after the Bengals bye and the Niners' kind of disappointing performance on the road. Next up, we've got a 46.5 in the Chargers and the Bears. This is weird because I feel like the Chargers should be able to move the ball and score points here. But then how much do you trust Justin Herbert's health? The way he's looked the last couple of weeks has been pretty disappointing. The Bears have been a really good defensive team as of late. The last couple of weeks, it feels like they're playing a lot better. Now, that's not playing Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense on the road. And also, you have to deal with Mr. Teabag there, who's a rookie undrafted quarterback. Are you going to go with a 46.5 over? So, overall, just at the fundamental level, I'm going to go with the under because I just don't know if I can trust an undrafted rookie quarterback to go over here. So, if this is just going to be a one-sided game for the Chargers, which I don't expect it to be because the Chargers typically play close games, I actually think this could be a low-scoring game. So I'm going to go under here. And then Monday Night Football, the Lions and the Raiders, 45.5. I'm also going to go under. I think the Lions defense responds. I have not been impressed with the Raiders offense. They're very one-dimensional with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, a lack of a downfield passing attack, a run game that hasn't been as good as last year. And then defensively, the Raiders have been solid. They don't allow a lot of big plays. They play within themselves, and Max Crosby's been a terror. I also feel like the Lions will try to get some explosive plays in the play-action game, but I think the Raiders will be well prepared for Jared Goff. I kind of feel like the Lions defense is going to show up, play a good game here, stop the run, force a couple turnovers, and win a comfortable game. Not a game where they're going to put up 40, but something like a 27-13 type of game where it's a pretty comfortable win, but it's nothing like absolutely sexy. So that's kind of the way that I see it. And those are my picks for every total for week number 8. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, spike the like button and subscribe for more. It's Mitch. Good luck on your bets this week, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.